hosted by Lawrence Technological University, and also by Plant Moran is our major sponsor. Our dean, Dr. Mirshab, is having a little medical problem. He injured his back, and he should have rested yesterday, but he thought he will brave it and come to work. And because of that, I think he has to stay home today. In any case, so we'll have to go on without his presence here. So I'm going to just call John over here to take over and do what is normally done in getting this event started. John?
Good morning, everybody. Sorry we're getting started a little bit late, but as you can see, we've probably got about 70% of the people haven't shown up yet for the session, so hopefully they'll be flowing in as we go. This is our last session of this year, and I want to thank LTU for their help, Blender Consulting Group as well for their help in securing sponsors, Michigan Nonprofit Association, and the McGregor Fund as well for their assistance. And I have the distinct pleasure again today to introduce our speaker, Beth Chappell. Beth is currently President and Chief Executive Officer of the Detroit Economic Club, and I'm sure if you've read the newspaper or you've looked in Cranes lately, you know that she's going to be starting a new endeavor once her successor is found and working with her son-in-law in a consulting company, which I'm sure she'll give us a little detail on with her talk here. Her new organization is called Ready Minds, and it's a data strategy, engineering, and innovation firm that's going to be based here in Southfield. So a little background on Beth. After graduating from Michigan State with her degree in marketing, she spent 16 years at AT&T. She was in various capacities there, including Global Services Vice President and Director of Network Deployment. In 1995, she formed the Chappell Group, which was a business consultancy. 4 years later, she joined CompuWare Corporation as Executive Vice President of Communications and Investor Relations. And then in April 2002, Beth became President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. She sits on a number of boards. In addition to the Detroit Economic Club, she's on the Detroit Regional Chamber, Lawrence Tech here, she's on the College of Management Advisory Board, St. Joseph Mercy Foundation, the Parade Company, and the United Way of Southeast Michigan. Beth and her husband, Warren, live in Bloomfield Hills, and their youngest of 6 children, Kate, is still with them, living with them. So, if you would please welcome Beth.
Thank you. Whoa. Good morning. How's everybody? Hi, Maria. I didn't see you earlier. Anyway, John, thank you so much for the nice introduction. Appreciate that. I am so honored to be here, and I've been struggling with what to talk about to my group of peers of nonprofit leaders. So I thought what I'd do to start is maybe I would much rather get to know all of you, but since this environment is not conducive to that, I'm going to share a little bit about me and then talk about my journey to the world of nonprofits, and then some of the challenges I know that I've faced along the way, and maybe we can get some interaction going, because I certainly would love to learn from this too. So when I was in kindergarten, I promise you I won't take you through every grade in school, but when I was in kindergarten, when I was getting ready to go to kindergarten, I could not wait. I was a kid, a proud blue-collar kid, born and raised in Dearborn Heights, but every time my parents fought, it was always my mom saying, if it wasn't for the kids, I would be doing this or whatever. And so from a very young age, I had this sense where I wanted to always be able to take care of myself. And so my first day of kindergarten, I was so excited. I remember this so vividly. First of all, I would not allow my mother to walk me to school. Now, she wasn't brokenhearted because I was the oldest of 4, so she had 3 other ones, little ones at home. But I was so angry when I went to my girlfriend's house because we were going to walk to school together, and her mother insisted on walking us to school. So I walked way ahead of them, and I just remember getting in that line and thinking that this was the first day of the rest of my life. And in a way, it really was, because one of the lessons I've learned over the years is, one of the things that you can always own is lifelong learning. And what a difference it makes in your life, how you provide for your family, how you look at the world. And so fast forward, I went to Michigan State, graduated from the business school with a degree in marketing and a minor in statistics, and went to work for AT&T. Now, at the time, I didn't know what AT&T was, and I'm guessing none of you did either. We knew the phone company. It was Michigan Bell, it was Ohio Bell. I'm dating myself, right? In the late 70s, 1979. And so I wound up interviewing with Michigan Bell, and I wanted to work with big customers, and they wanted to hire me to call on 100 small businesses or whatever. And I said, no, thank you, I'll move on. And they said, wait, we have our parent company who handles our large accounts. And I said, okay, that's great, and that was AT&T. And of course, we've had many breakups put together, and it's not the same company it was. But I went to work for AT&T, and they sent me to school for 10 weeks, my first 10 weeks with the company, 3 in Chicago and 7 in Cincinnati. And that was probably a huge, huge defining moment, or what would be defining moments or period of time in my life. I was a junkie for the knowledge. Every class I was just so excited, and to the point where I think I was really annoying. I was right out of college, and most of my peers were not, and I think I was really annoying to them. And by the way, there were 40 of us and 2 women, so that puts it in perspective. Anyway, graduated from that training and was assigned to a company called Burroughs here in Detroit, which is no longer even a company. But what I was taught to do is sell solutions, help customers solve business problems at the very highest level of the company. And so I came back to Michigan. Came back from training, and I was sitting in my desk, and I kept saying to my boss, when do I get to meet the customer? When do I get to meet the customer? I want to solve some business problems. And I think I was annoying him, too. The pattern here, annoying, okay? So he says to me, well, go meet a customer. I said, really? He said, yeah. And again, they taught us that only senior executives could make decisions for big systems. So I went to Burroughs headquarters, and they had a directory, and I went to an inside phone. It was right outside the coat closet, so I just started calling every vice president. If they had a title vice president, I called. So one guy was curious, thought, who is this? And so I walk in with my little tie and 21 years old, and hi, sir, I'm your business problem solver. I'm the director of field engineering. I don't buy phones. I'm not selling phones. I am your business problem solver. Well, you're with AT&T, you sell phones. No. Then I launch into what keeps you up at night? And that was the beginning of what turned out to be the largest sale that had ever been made at the company up to this point in time. And the company was about 90 years old at the time, so it was pretty old. But it was also the beginning of time when AT&T wanted to be a real company, not the phone company. So there were a lot of dynamics going on there, but because I was so into the training, I didn't stray from what they taught me. To the point sometimes where it didn't make sense that I would not stray. I stayed to the script and, this, that, and the other. So after that happened, that began, and all of a sudden, this little college salesperson is getting all this notoriety inside the company because it was a huge sale. So then I started moving all over the country. And that's when I did a lot of sales work. I've been in global sales off and on throughout my career. But every 2 years I'd move to a new city and AT&T would provide me with a new opportunity. And so I come to the party with this fabulous education and this fabulous first career, where not only did I have great sales training and what have you, but I worked in engineering, I worked in operations, I worked in product management. And so what a wonderful, what a wonderful first career. Then in January of 1990, I got transferred back home to Michigan. I had been with the company by that time, I think 11 or 12 years. And when I left Michigan, I was an entry-level salesperson. And when I came back to Michigan, I was in charge of a 5-state region. And so that was pretty cool. And I wanted to, coming home for a 2-year assignment, that's also operative here. Coming home for a 2-year assignment, I wanted to do good in the community. I was in a very visible position. I'm from here, so I wanted to make my 2 years everything that I could do. And it was also my first foray into the world of nonprofit. So every 2 years I'm moving, I'm living on airplanes, really didn't have capacity or the inclination or frankly even know the world of nonprofit back then. But coming back in this senior level capacity, not only was AT&T, and they still are, community is important to them, but I realized that all of a sudden I was getting almost swarmed by all these nonprofits. And again, now this is January of 1990, because my gosh, it's a girl. There's a girl, man. Let's get her on the board because we need one, right? And so I got very, very involved very quickly, and I asked my staff at the time, because I was living on airplanes, I said, I'll do 2 things. Pick the 2 things that you think would be the highest value add for both the community and our business. And it was the Detroit Economic Club, and it was the Detroit Regional Chamber, both organizations of which I remain very close to this, to this day. And I would say that because I have been around a long time in these, senior level roles and in the community, you know a lot of people, and these are all my friends. And so it is I don't know, it's just pretty cool. And so then, met my husband, or else I would have been back in New Jersey in '92. Met my husband, we had a bunch of kids, so that kind of messed up my, my AT&T career for a while anyway. So I resigned, said, see you later, when I realized that I did take my kids on airplanes, on business trips. I just schlepped them along with me. But then one day they have to go to school. So it's like, and then I figured, well, if I was gonna have the kids, I probably should raise the kids and get off the airplane. So that's when I changed my career. I'll fast forward through the rest of the stuff and to the point where I came into the Detroit Economic Club. My husband has had pretty serious health issues over the years. And so I found myself at a time with 3 young ones, and we have 3 older kids too. My husband was a widower. He brought 3 older ones, and I tell people we must have been doing really good drugs to have 3 more when you come into a family of 3 teenagers. So I don't know what was going on there, but anyway, so I had to make some changes in my career, and at the time, the Detroit Economic Club job was open, and I was not interested. I didn't think it was a big enough job for me. I thought I was such a la-di-da, with all these thousands of people in my organization and billion-dollar sales territories and all this stuff. But a friend of mine who was heading the search committee kept coming after me. He said, Beth, you'd be perfect at this. And I'm like, come on, Ken. I wouldn't work, I wouldn't work part-time for that, kind of a thing. I just look back, I'm just mortified at the way I behaved, but it was only Ken, so nobody else saw me like that. Anyway, wound up in this job, and I would not sign a 3-year contract because the organization was in very serious financial issues, just a lot of things. Organizations go up and down. My predecessor is an awesome guy, just wasn't the right guy for that job. So it was a mess. It was a mess. Day one, I walk in. Oh, by the way, I didn't do what I would consider due diligence around this job either. You know, you go to a corporate job, you want to know all of this stuff. Well, I'd been involved with the Economic Club for a long time. I didn't know how bad it was financially, but I thought, how bad could it be? I learned it could be really bad. But so first day walk in, and my senior vice president, and God love him, he's an awesome man, but he was also 84 years old and did not understand why we would need a computer or a website or money in the bank. So I asked for the financial statements, and the first thing was, well, our financials are done pro bono by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they're excellent partners, but we're not always top of their list. And by the way, my first day on the job was April 15th, tax day, so to put it in perspective. I said, oh, okay, they're probably a little busy right now, so I don't need the March statements, but I'll take the February. January? How about December? Well, when we finally got the statements, the news was not good. And so this was again, my first foray into the world of nonprofit. And so I went to the chairman and I said, well, I didn't know it was such a mess, but I also am never someone to complain without, you know, a solution. So literally that day, the Detroit Economic Club sponsorship program was born. And so we enjoy today support from 134 sponsors, corporate sponsors. They invest between $5,000 a year and $50,000 a year in our organization. From a financial perspective, that's what pays our salaries. And by the way, we're not nearly as big as many of your organizations. We're teeny tiny. I like to say we're tiny but mighty. We have a big national reputation. That's really important. We have a pretty decent reputation here locally too, but we're like $2.4 million a year. So 7 staff, we're very tiny, but we have a big voice. So the sponsorship thing was, you know, the first challenge. And how many of you lead your organizations and are really the chief development person too? Yeah, that's pretty much. So you get it. So that we muddled along, and we've always had great speakers, and so all of that is always fantastic. But then we ran head on into the recession. And in our world, unlike many of your worlds, I mean, I was talking to Al early at the Guidance Center, and when things are so tough, do you stop contributing to the Guidance Center, or do you stop going to lunch? You know, so it's and we all have our value propositions and we all have our challenges, but for us, I mean, even I would make the decision to keep funding the Guidance Center and, you know, not go to lunch. So we really wound up in some pretty serious trouble for 2 reasons. One is everybody else, I mean, misery loves company, but secondly, we really did not have a financial cushion that we should have had, that any business would have to kind of weather the bad times. We were still trying to put things together and, you know, get an organization up and running. And we had reserves, but we didn't have enough reserves. So that was a very hard and it was a very painful lesson. Bill Ford is the chair of our board. We are privileged to have, oh my goodness, most of the prominent CEOs, including Dr. Maud Gill, including Gordon Crater from Plant Moran, as part of our board, and they were absolutely fabulous when we were looking in the mirror and wondering if we were going to survive. So I'm happy to say we did. We got very focused. First thing was we needed to raise $1 million to keep the lights on. And then every year we've come up with different fundraising opportunities, chairman's dinner, that sort of thing. And so all is good, all is good. But I also wanted to share with you our Young Leader Program, and not to talk all about the DEC, and again, sorry to talk so much about me, but it kind of puts it in context. We, 6 years ago now, We are well on the way to being financially sound, and things are going well. And we have at this time probably 3,000 members, 2,800 members. And of those members, 220 are under 40. Now, that doesn't speak well for the long-term viability of an organization. And try as we might, we've always had the reputation that you have to be a senior executive to be part of the economic club. And that's just not true. I mean, we welcome anybody who shares our passion for engaging in the great issues of the day. So we put our heads together and we came up with a young leader program that has turned out to far exceed my wildest expectations, and I have wild expectations. So, and it was something very simple. The punchline is we've gone from 220 young leaders to pushing 1,600 young leaders. And these are all people, now they maybe changed the rules to 40 and under, because some of them were aging out, but so we did that, and the way we got there was pretty simple at first, and now it's getting more interesting. So we just started by asking our board members to host meetings for only young leaders. We wanted to provide them something that they could not get anywhere else, or they couldn't get very many places. And so what we're providing our young leaders is access to our region's most senior executives. And the way that works, and Bill did the first one, so Bill Ford hosts, we cap attendance at 50 people. And so they're intimate, relatively speaking. They're little mini DEC meetings, so you come a little networking and a little meal, whether it's a breakfast or a lunch or an after hours. And then there's a program, and the program usually is the CEO or whatever he or she, whatever their title, sharing with the group their journey. And it is just remarkable. I mean, talk about somebody who is passionate about lifelong learning. I have the best job in town because you get to learn every day. So these meetings started taking on a life of their own. They would sell out, and our membership started growing. So it's great when you have 50 slots available to hang out with Bill Ford in the penthouse dining room for lunch. But when you have 1,000 members vying for 50 seats, that gets a little tricky. So you can do two things, either make the meetings bigger or provide more of them, and we really did both. So at that time, we took I did a very scientific process. It was called Ask My Assistant to tell me how many times people came to the meeting. So who were the frequent attenders? And cut it off at 30 and invited all 30 of those young leaders to join me in forming a group to help plot the future. And I think this was really, I don't know if we could have grown the way that we did, just continuing to do those meetings, but we got them engaged in really taking a leadership role on behalf of that membership demographic. That started as a committee. It evolved into now our Young Leader Board. So technically, from a governance perspective, it's a committee of the Detroit Economic Club. But these folks, these young people are taking the world by the tail, and they're owning it. So now, this summer, or this fall, we will have our third Young Leader Conference. It's a 3/4 of a day conference for young leaders, put together by young leaders. And that has been very, very successful. And the format is a combination of speakers and then breakout sessions, and it's been very successful. They want to do social events. So we had a social event, Farewell to the Joe. I think it was just last week. My days are getting all mixed up. And that was magnificent. They want to do community service, and they want to do personal development. So personal development, we've done two. One is on personal finances. The other one was on negotiations and public speaking. But perhaps the thing I am most proud of, and I hope, let me just stop for a second. Do any of you have this issue about trying to get younger people involved in your organization? Yeah, yeah, okay. For us, I think for us it was our survival issue, really. So the other dynamic that we have at the Detroit Economic Club is we have a terrific student program. And these are high school students, mostly juniors and seniors, and college students who are able to come to every one of our Detroit Economic Club meetings at no charge. And it's our sponsors who pay for that, and LTU are great participants. And what that means is we have a speaker, pick a speaker, and our kids get to spend a half hour with whoever the speaker is, or multiple speakers, before anything else happens. So the kids they come prepared with questions, and they get to spend time with our speaker. And then they, participate in the lunch and everything else that, that we do as part of the program. What our young leaders decided that they wanted to do, and I will be very upfront, I wasn't sure this was a good idea. I mean, I kind of came to the party a little reluctantly because I thought they were biting off too much. But we are now in our second year of the Detroit Economic Club's Career Readiness Academy. This is a program that runs for 5 months. This year it is in 12 schools. We have 250 kids and 80 of our young leader volunteers who go into these schools once a month after school, 90 minutes, and talk about your personal brand. Talk about how to do a resume. Talk about the first day is what jobs are available, how much do they pay, and what do I need to be able to do this? And so they go through this whole process, and so it's resume writing, it's your own personal brand, it's negotiations, it is find your career. We added a special session this year on advanced manufacturing to expose the kids to that. Their final exam is they have to come to a Detroit Economic Club meeting. We only did this once, and last year, I'm not a weepy sort, but I was so choked up behind the podium I could hardly get words out of my mouth, and promise that doesn't happen very often. But they have to come to a Detroit Economic Club meeting and go through the whole deal, the Q&A, and sit through the meeting. And then at the end, they have to approach a Detroit Economic Club member and do his or her elevator pitch. So, they walk up, they know to make eye contact, how to shake hands, and, Mr. or Mrs. XYZ, my name is Tina, and I want to be a CPA, and I'm going to do this, and, and I had asked, we run a very on-time business, so you can walk out the door at 1:30 after a Detroit Economic Club. That's when we say we're going to end, and we always end on time. So I asked our members beforehand that we would certainly end on time, but if they had a few minutes that the kids needed to do this to complete their training, 25 minutes later, the room was still packed. I mean, it was the most awesome thing. So this year we're doing twice the number of kids, as I said, 250. But if you step back and look what we've been trying to accomplish, it really is, we've got the business community here. Now we've got this demographic of our membership that's robust and growing and vibrant. And then we've got the kids here. And now they're all starting to come together. And it's a pretty magnificent thing. So anyway, I'm going to stop here for a minute. I can go on and on and on, but anyone want to have a little interaction here? You don't have, oh, thank you. I don't know how much time we have. Oh, we have lots of time. No?
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, Maria.
Hold on a second. I'll give you the...
Yes, I'd like to know how did the senior, your senior
What is wrong with
members.
your voice?
I know, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Are you
Yeah.
okay?
How your senior members, in addition to coming and talking with the young with the young leaders, how do they perceive and how do we interact with all the, with the dynamics that now exists at the Detroit Economic Club?
How do they perceive them?
Not just perceiving, but how do they actually do interact? I know that the senior members come to the young leader groups, right?
Oh, how do the senior executives interact with the young leaders?
And
Okay.
and with the younger kids, yes.
Yeah, well, the young leaders and the kids, we've got that, down pretty well. I'm not sure if I'm getting your question, Maria. A little more detail. Yeah. I just think I can't
Just a
understand
little
what
bit,
you're saying.
I know. Just a little bit more detail in terms of how do they, not just the interaction, but I understand that they are proud, but what is their personal contribution from the CEOs to to the young kids that now are part of the
Okay.
academy?
So there is not a lot of interaction between our CEOs and the students. I think the young leaders are kind of filling that niche. We are so fortunate, and I don't want this to sound inappropriate, but we are so fortunate to have such strong support from these CEOs who are all very, very busy people, as we all know. So I work pretty hard not to have to demand more of their time than what they're willing to do. Having said that, almost every one of our board members has either hosted a young leader meeting, most of them have hosted it. And I'll tell you, for the young leader meetings, these are the meetings of 50 people. It got kind of hilarious for a while because it was like the board members were competing with each other on who could do the coolest meeting. And when the first one is at, penthouse dining room at Ford World headquarters, it's kind of hard to beat that. But they've done some great things. But they really don't have a lot of interaction with the kids, except at the student receptions. They sponsor there. So I'm sorry, that probably didn't answer that very well. Yes?
You mentioned you were trying to attract younger volunteers or younger members.
Right.
And in the process, you started having the lecture series. What other ways, did you use any social media? How did you actually get them engaged to even come to those meetings? What was what methods did you use to kind of engage them?
We have been very active, and I personally am not a big social media person, but we've got a lot of social media activity at the club. We have, I think we're over 10,000 followers on Twitter. So we did use social media extensively. And then when we put this board together, we asked them to reach out to their networks too. We haven't spent any advertising money on this. It has all been word of mouth. Now, the other thing that we did is that if you are a corporate sponsor or any kind of a sponsor, if you invest in a sponsorship package with the Economic Club, you get memberships, you get meeting tickets, you get the opportunity to do student tickets, but in the memberships, I provide young leader memberships. So many times, with the way we worked it out, is I could go to one of my board members or the whole board and say, okay, folks, you're all sponsors. Go back and put names next to these young leader memberships. So, it's like the sleeves out of your vest because they were already paid for. We also kept the young leader memberships low in terms of price so that we could attract people that were not necessarily being sponsored by their corporation. So a young leader membership is 75 tax-deductible dollars a year, and you pay as you go. You pay $45 for each meeting. But we used it extensively. And, we have the benefit also of being able to promote or at least mention it at our Detroit Economic Club meetings. And so it's really just been word of mouth. I will tell you, this has been so successful. And again, I give the Young Leader Board, if you will, the majority of the credit, that we have people calling us all the time now. Can you promote our fundraiser to your Young Leader group? Everybody wants access to this, these 1,600 young people. And we love to play team ball, but I can't be out promoting everybody, we send enough e-blasts and invitations on our own. We can't be making people crazy by doing that, but it's become quite the sought-after group.
Do you think, part two to my question then is, you gave them a responsibility, you let them set up their own board, which was a kind of a committee.
Yep.
Do you think that that was key in keeping them engaged, was giving them that kind of responsibility?
I think we could have done it without doing that. We're pretty good. We're operationally very elegant when it comes to turning around meetings and doing that well. But I don't think it would be the same. I don't think it would be the same. I find myself sometimes, and this group of young people are just, and when I say young people, they're all, they're successful in their own right. They're in their 20s and 30s. But they, I don't know, they just have such great ideas. But I get to a point sometimes where it's kind of like, empowerment without alignment is chaos. And sometimes what they want to do is a little out of the bounds of, what I want to do. So we're always kind of coming back and forth. You want to you want to be the wind beneath their wings within reason. So there's some of that, but, and the other thing is this group has become very close. And I think that's one of the things that makes me so happy. I wish that for the other 1,550 people, but it's cool. We've had, I think, 8 or 9 babies, with this group over the last 3 years. So it's great. This, as I started to say, and I hope I'm not dragging this on too long, this really was very unexpected, I guess. We had a plan, we worked our plan, and it turned out beautifully, but we had other plans that didn't work too. Right before we came to this simple solution, we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and had some professional help in designing curricula, if you will, for this group, or this group demographic. And we got it done, and I thought, God, I'm old, and I would never go to this. You would never have gotten me to do this in my 30s. No way. So, we tried and we failed in a couple of different ways. We never launched that program, but we put a lot of effort into it just to scrap it. But this we could start. If this is an issue that you're dealing with in your organizations, find a way to start easy, where it doesn't cost a lot of money. We ask our board members when they host this meeting for 50 people, we ask them to pay for it. Now, it's not a lot of revenue for us, $45 times 50 people, but every little bit helps, as we all know in this world. So they actually underwrite the thing, and it works beautifully. So we were able to implement this with virtually no cost other than staff cost. So,
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Beth, congratulations on what you've created with the youth. It's me right here.
Oh,
Yeah, it's Al.
Hi, Al.
Congratulations on what you've created with the youth leadership. I think that is a very wonderful thing that many of us in this room would like to achieve. What is the trajectory once someone is aged out of the youth leadership? Is there an automatic advisory board, or do they have an opportunity to move up to a board leadership depending on where they are in their organization? Have you had the need to engage them once they've aged out of the youth leadership capacity, and how have you done it, or what is your plan to do for that?
We're still new at that. The plan is that when you age out, you move into a regular DEC membership, hopefully a gold membership. We've had a fair amount of success with people aging out, but we don't really have that process as elegant as it needs to be. I guess I would say that. And we also ran into, unexpected, consequences. Our young leader meetings got to be so sought after that I would have members giving me grief. It's like, well, I want to have lunch with Bill Ford. I'm like, what? So translating these young leaders into members for life is really what the objective is, and we're working on that. But like I said, we're not elegant at it yet.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Good morning, Beth. My name's Matt Cole. I'm a professor here in the College of Management.
Hi, Matt. Or professor, sorry.
So we have some students here, and we also, I guess we videotape it, and so we play back. Can you educate us or give us a little bit of history? So when you joined the Detroit Economic Club, did you have to work on the mission statement at all from what the nonprofit would do? And when did the objective of the DEC to have this sort of student mentoring and leadership piece come into the mission of the nonprofit?
So no, we did not change the mission. Our mission has remained the same since 1934 when we were founded, and that is to engage in the great business, government, and social issues of our day.
I think that right there sounds like a challenging mission for a nonprofit from the perspective of having a conversation and addressing issues, whereas you have some nonprofits that are, jumping in and, let's say, doing some type of social entrepreneurship or things like that. But
Right.
that seems a little bit of a challenging mission.
Well, it is. I mean, it's also kind of one of the
Yeah.
coolest jobs around. So what I get to do is watch the news and go, wow, that guy would be pretty cool. Or, boy, she's really smart. And then see if we can get him or her. Even when the club was down and out, and it was, I already painted that picture for you, we always had a really good reputation. And so through the good times and the bad times, I mean, the power of reputation is very powerful. And what I felt my job was coming in is that we needed to get the reality, closer to the perception. So that was kind of a good problem to have, but it's still a problem. And we have never paid for a speaker. And people find that unbelievable because we have had virtually every president since Richard Nixon. And of course, presidents don't get honorariums, but very big top-notch names. And so it is the power of the podium. And when we send an invitation, we send, here who comes to speak. Back to your question, Al, about the board thing, if somebody comes off of the Young Leader Board, I just thought of this. You have to be a CEO or the top person in your organization, like I was at AT&T when I was here, in order to be considered for the board. So I don't know, I wanted to get that in. But yeah, so it's the power of reputation is really something. And people come, these CEOs from these massively global companies, and they're humbled, to be at the podium. So it's a very wonderful feeling, and it is awesome to be an ambassador of the city of Detroit, to people who are coming here from other places.
And the Young Leaders Program, when did that start or become so prominent for the DEC?
The young leaders or the students?
The students.
Okay, so the student, I can't figure that out. I've been looking for that. We had a big 75th celebration several years ago, when it was our 75th, and we went back into the archives. We have all these archives at the Detroit Public Library that are fascinating, and we couldn't find where it started. So it didn't start on my watch. I can't take credit for that.
So I just think it's cool that program of the education piece is so prominent for the nonprofit. I think that's a big opportunity that nonprofits have.
That is the foundation of our nonprofit status, is that. And actually, we did something with the students that, again, little things are such big things. The students have a half an hour, as I mentioned, with our speakers before the rest of the stuff gets going. And then the speaker and I will leave to go to our VIP reception, and then we do lunch. Well, the bottom line is the kids had nothing to do for 30 minutes, and that's never good, right? So what we did was, now when the speaker and I leave to go to the reception, we have two of our young leaders come in from different paths or different places and talk about their careers. So it's just one more opportunity, to connect these kids. So.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Beth. How are you doing?
Good, how are
That's
you?
good, pretty good.
My girlfriend right in the front row.
My name is Maria Holmes. I'm the Director of Community Investment for Comcast.
Yes, of
and
course.
my question for you is this. As we are working with young people, especially through STEM opportunities and things like that, we're looking forward in terms of workforce development. The opportunity at some point in time to perhaps employ some of these students that we're working with, whether it's high school students or college students. I understand the objective of the DEC for exposure for these students, for their careers, but are there other objectives that you're looking for in terms of what you want these students to get out of being either a part of the STEM, the high school program that you have, or the Young Leaders program?
So they're different, I would have different objectives for different groups.
Right.
So for the kids that come to the Economic Club, for many of them, it's one and done. It's, what we're trying, particularly with some of the schools that kids don't have these opportunities, that's all about exposure,
Right.
and how to make eye contact and how to shake a hand and all of that stuff. So we get a lot of repeat students, but in that example, I mean, it's pretty much one and done. The Career Readiness Academy, where our young leaders are working in the schools, for 5-6 months at a time, that's very different. I mean, those objectives are to make sure these kids have some working knowledge of the world out there and get a head start on the skills that they need to get good paying jobs. So they are very different.
Regardless to whether or not they go to college.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Good morning. Everything's been wonderful. I'm Gino Berman from Operation Refuge in Inkster. I'm right here, Beth.
Oh, I'm like, where are you?
I see you looking
I don't know
down
why
there.
up here. I can't tell where the sound is coming from. Okay, hi, G.
So my question is, what are the new objectives? Where are you going next? Cranes had some information, but I thought we'd just find out from you.
Oh, aren't you nice? Aren't you nice? So I'm where I'm going next, I announced that I'm resigning. I like to say bidding the Economic Club a fond farewell, because it is a fond farewell. I love my job. I wouldn't sign a 3-year contract, and it's been 15 years, so I mean, there's something really good, and I felt that it was the right time for somebody else to take the organization to the next level. In the meantime, I've started a technology company with my son-in-law. He's worked it full-time for the last year, and when I leave the Economic Club, which will be when my successor is selected, and not a minute before, I'm going to join him full-time. So the company is called Ready Minds. It's a data strategy, engineering, and innovation company. My son-in-law has deep experience in technology. I have a past career, 16 years at AT&T, and I was telling a few folks earlier, when I was at AT&T selling, they taught me how to sell to CEOs, but that doesn't mean I knew how to make any of the stuff work. I mean, I was clueless on that, right? I had way smarter people than me. And so our business model with the new business is that, I know a lot of folks. I can open those C-suite doors. And my son-in-law, who is just super good in this data mining and analytics and big data and data engineering and, data science and all of that. So that's going to be my new life. I'm going full circle to what I did before. But it's very, very exciting. And this is something, I've always been somebody who plans like 10, 15 years ahead. I don't know, AT&T kind of got me doing that. And so I had this dream 10 years ago in Puerto Vallarta at the pool. I was sitting with my girlfriend having a margarita. And I said, you know what, in 10 years, ish, it wasn't specific, but my husband and I are empty nesters now, and I think I've got one more career in me, and I'm very excited about the new venture, and I couldn't be more proud to pass the baton with the Detroit Economic Club. It's just been such a privilege to be the steward of that organization. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you. Yes.
Good morning, Beth. Rachel Downs with Dandelion. And again, congratulations on your
Hi.
new venture.
Thank you.
I think it's awesome, as a woman leader and role model, that you're demonstrating that this isn't retirement, this is chapter 3 or 4.
Yeah, this is not retirement, I can promise you.
So with that, and recognizing that the Detroit Economic Club is a relatively small organization
Very.
from a budget and staff standpoint, how do you balance kind of the level of executive that you engage on your board and kind of inspiring them to move beyond just being a strategic advisor and getting them to function as really a working, engaged board?
Well, one of my core competencies is nagging, I've been told, so that's a good skill set to have. But very seriously and candidly, I don't really engage our board members in terms of, I try to ask them to do as little as possible while still being engaged and committed to the organization. So what I mean by that is financially committed, showing up for meetings. I mean, it's hard for some of these execs to show up for meetings, and so you kind of try to set the expectations ahead of time what their engagement will be, what their commitment will be. What I need board members for, because we're so tiny, I mean, how many people do you need to manage a $2.5 million budget? But what I need them for, I need them to show up at our chairman's dinner, because that's our annual fundraiser, and that's the way that we're going to wind up being even more financially secure in the future. I need them to come a couple times a year, and we have many directors that come all the time, so these are kind of different tiers of directors, if you will. But I find that the less I ask them to do, the easier it is for them to be engaged. And where I need them engaged, as I said, is really their physical presence at things that are important to the organization, which is very different. I've sat on 1 million boards, mostly nonprofit, but also for-profit, and it's very different. This board is very different than any board that I have ever sat on or that I do right now. And frankly, I kind of like it that way. How much governance, again, with an organization of 7 people, so it's a little different. Yeah.
Good morning, Beth. My name is Linda Braun.
Hi, Linda.
Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between the Detroit Economic Club and Detroit's nonprofit community?
Sure. I don't know I'm not sure how to answer that. Can you be a little more specific? I'm not sure.
Well, you talked about in your mission, part of it was engaging in social issues of the day. So, and I think of the Detroit Economic Club as a business organization.
Okay.
So I just wondered what.
Yeah, thank you. We do engage with nonprofits. I make sure that at least twice a year, and probably not more than twice a year, we do, put it in perspective, we do probably 30-ish regular meetings a year. We do another 18 or so young leader meetings. So we've got a lot of meetings. On both the young leader and the regular meetings, we make sure that we have a couple of meetings a year that are nonprofit related. What we do insist on is that we have the global CEO. So this year we had the global CEO of the United Way, Brian Gallagher, and he was on stage with our local CEO, Herman Gray. We had Goodwill Industries a few years ago. We've had the American Red Cross. So we try to keep that part of the program alive, and it just is a matter of who we can get and what. We don't sit down and say, okay, strategically, we want to work with 2 human services nonprofits and educate. We don't do that. It's more kind of the ebb and flow of who can we get and who haven't we had yet. So, did that answer your question? Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Rachel, and for the nonprofit that I work with, I oversee our community engagement and strategic community impact. And I'd like to know if you have any recommendations or considerations for developing strong cross-sector partnerships so that nonprofits can maximize their impact?
I think a lot about, when you say cross-sector partnerships, you mean nonprofit, or nonprofit, for-profit? Could you give me an example of what you're talking about?
Nonprofit and then anybody else.
Okay.
Across the sector, not nonprofit.
Okay, so somebody that's not in the nonprofit.
Correct.
Okay. We have tried off and on over the years to partner with other organizations, and we don't seem to do it very well. And it's not because we don't want to do it very well, but it seems it's, I always walk a fine line, and I don't know if this is answering your question, but I walk a fine line because our board doesn't want us to inundate people. Like I said, we can't be the marketing arm for every organization in town. And so it's hard sometimes to find partnership opportunities, either with other nonprofits or in this case with for-profits that make sense. So we draw a pretty fine line there, but yet we want to do things with other organizations. So we have, what's a recent example of something we've done? I can't even think. We do things with the chamber sometimes, or if somebody brings in a really big name speaker, we can find a way to, help partner with them. But we're pretty much, our programming and these other programs keeps us very, very gainfully employed. So, and I don't feel like I answered your question, but I'm not sure if I really understood
It's okay. It's a bit of a toughie, but sometimes for nonprofits, especially in this area, to maximize the impact of what they have to do, they have to intersect with intentionality with other groups, whether they be, another nonprofit down the street, or it could be, a school, it could be municipal, it could be anything. So just always looking for ways to improve in that area.
Well, right now, what we're getting a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, with this young leader group, because they're a very hot demographic and very of high interest to for-profits and not-for-profits. And that's where we keep, and they have a desire to do work in the community. So we are going to intentionally partner with a couple of nonprofits every year to do more of like a project-related kind of a thing, where we can bring a lot of bodies to help, but probably not year over year. We're trying to, at least right now, our strategy is to work with several and kind of spread the love. So.
I just talk?
Sure. Yeah.
So it looks like you're more people-oriented in your services than, say, a project-oriented.
For sure.
Would that be? And the second question, just a trivial one, and that is, have you had an embarrassing situation where a speaker comes and then at the end of it says, hey, where's my check?
No, not one time, because I make it very, very clear up front that we do not pay honorariums, or we don't even pay travel expenses. And if they need a ride or want a ride, we'll do that from the airport. But I've only done that twice. One was with Secretary Kissinger. Now that, I'll tell you, that was an interesting day. But yeah, so it's funny. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Beth. My name is Nicole Probst. I am a student at Lawrence Tech. I'm soon to be graduating right now. My question to you is, for someone my age, about age 20 to 25, we're graduating college, we're still studying for maybe graduate school and maybe for extra certifications or exams. How active do you think people around my age should be in learning about the community and going to these leadership meetings? How active do you see students?
I think that's a great question, and thank you for that. Nicole, what are you graduating?
I'm graduating in a month.
No, I mean, what kind of a degree?
Oh, in business administration, but my focus would be in accounting.
Good for you. Congratulations early. I just lost your question. I'm sorry. What did you just ask me?
That's no problem. My main
It's
question
been a long
is.
few days.
My main question is.
How engaged? I'm sorry.
Yes.
How engaged should they be? Man, I'm telling you, I have this CRS thing. Can't remember. that kicks in every once in a while. So rewinding back to my story, I was moving so fast every 2 years, and I was living on airplanes. I was so naive about getting involved in things. And honestly, the way I grew up, I mean, it just wasn't in our culture to do that. I think today, your generation are so much more engaged just intuitively. I mean, the internet changed a lot of things. But there's a season for everything. You know, in the world of nonprofits, we ask for time, talent, and treasures. And the time, you know, at your age, you probably, even if your heart is into it and you want to contribute, you probably can't write a check for 6 figures or 5 figures or 4 or 20, you know, whatever. But you have some time. And maybe not now because you're graduating and whatever. So maybe you just kind of learn about things that you might be interested in. Whatever you get involved in, be sure it's in your heart. I mean, it's got to be head, heart, tummy aligned. Whatever the cause is, whatever it is. But as you get older and you get more into your career, then that's kind of where the talent comes in. You might volunteer, you might be on the board and you might be the treasurer of a nonprofit. And then as you get older, you know, and you're a little more settled, that's where usually, not always, not for everybody, but that's kind of where where you start writing the checks. But I do believe there's a season for everything. I mean, when my kids were little and I was living on airplanes and doing stuff, I didn't have the capacity to do some of the things that I wanted to. I always did far more than I look back and I don't know how I did it, but you do what you can. But I think if you get engaged, again, in something that you love, it will open up your world. And as I said earlier, for me, and I've been involved in a lot of nonprofits over the years, I mean, these people become your friends. And that's really cool when you can walk around town and say, hey, you know, how you doing? And oh, by the way, I'm selling paper clips and I'd like to talk to you about that, you know, kind of a thing. So you get so much more back than you give, you know, and that's before the work of the organization, at least in my opinion. So.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll add that I think the one thing that's cool about the DEC is it's that personal thing. So, yeah, your generation and the students that are graduating are really plugged into social media, but what the DEC offers is that personal networking piece.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's, you know, you want to continue to do that if you're not doing it a lot now, and do it more as much as possible, because that's the piece I think that misses with the younger folk, at least the students that I see. They're really plugged into social media, and that's awesome, and we're seeing the power of, you know, Twitter and whatnot in politics, but it's that face-to-face that it's how, you know, connections are made from a career perspective, particularly in areas like nonprofit, I think, where you really need to plug into the community.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and that is what we're all about. We're all about education and networking and all that good stuff. Yes?
I was just going to add to that. So I spent the first 20 years of my career in commercial real estate, and much like Beth, was really too busy to be all that involved. And truly, it was my participation in the Leadership Detroit program, my good friend Gary Dents here, that helped me understand kind of the power of network and access.
Right.
And if you build that early on in your career, you will be able to make really great things happen, not just for yourself, but for other people. So I would encourage you to be very intentional about investing your time in community service and business networking, because it really will empower you in ways that you can't really imagine at this stage in your career.
Yeah, and I think intentional, we've used that word a couple of times. I think that's so important. I mean, do it intentionally. Don't kind of go along. Make sure time is so precious. I mean, it's so precious. Make sure that you invest yours, you know, where you want. And the other point, I think that was such a great point, the other point is don't do anything to meet people. Do it because you're interested in the work. Because believe me, you can always tell the guy or the gal that's in the room, that wants to, meet John, just because he or she's got to meet John. And you can spot them a mile away. I've had people come up to me and go, hey, hi, my name is so-and-so. Literally, somebody I don't even know, telling me that he would like me to get an appointment for him to visit with Bill Ford. So you mistake me for his admin. I am not that person, and I don't even know you. Or, oh my gosh, hi, I'm so-and-so said that you're so great about whatever. Hey, I'd like to tap into your network. Like, tap out of here. I mean, come on. You build these relationships over years. You do it from your heart, genuinely. You get to know people and friends, and somebody comes and says, I want to tap into your network. What have you done to create your own network, kind of a thing. So that's excellent. That's probably the best advice today. So, Nicole, do that. Okay.
Last question, anybody? No? Beth?
All right.
Thank you very much.
You guys, thank you so much. Thank you.